Welcome to Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is.
I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometime speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer.
And last time, we covered a civil war. Today, we have a very different kind of battle. You might say it's the kind of battle where knowing is half of it.
Knowing, Eric? Or Hasbroing?
Oh, yeah. Very much Hasbroing. It's from the same toy company that brought you Transformers. We now have
G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra from 2009. Was I wrong in saying, isn't G.I. Joe a Hasbro toy?
Yeah, it is Hasbro. In fact, I mean, we can make this part of the podcast.
Yeah, please.
When we first
You say we can make it part of the podcast when I know you could give the history of Hasbro toys and cinema. You could deliver a thesis for us right now. I know you can, Eric.
Well, a brief history of G.I. Joe before it even became a movie. Yes, it was an after-school, what they call a strip cartoon series. It was on daily, Monday through Friday. Before that, it was a toy. A toy that actually spun off. In my mind, this is not Hasbro, it was Mattel, because I remembered it being basically the first. I was not alive back then, but apparently the first G.I. Joes were Ken dolls and fatigues that they sold as action figures because they figured these Barbie dolls are so popular. If we just change the clothing, we can probably sell them to the boys too. And I was sort of right. They were not official Ken dolls. They were a different company selling the same sized dolls, seeing the popularity of the Barbie dolls. But when I first started watching the G.I. Joe movie, in my mind, this is a Mattel thing. And I was like, it almost fits into the new Mattel Cinematic Universe thanks to Barbie. This is just what's going on in G.I. Joe land while all the Barbies are having fun in Barbie land. And then, of course, I looked it up. I was, oh, no, this is Hasbro. It's a whole different company. It's more related to Transformers. There's no connection to Barbie at all.
They put the bro in Hasbro.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra 2009, starring a lot of people.
2008, they announced this movie, that they're going to make this movie. You look at this on paper, you're like, wow, this is impressive.
Directed by Stephen Sommers.
Stephen Sommers, who directed...
He revived the Mummy franchise.
Yeah, The Mummy. The first Mummy. Great movie. Yeah,
and before then, he did a couple Disney's first attempts to turn cartoons into live-action movies. He actually did, in the mid-'90s, a pretty well-received live-action Jungle Book.
Yeah, he did Huck.
Yeah, and then Adventures of Huck Finn, which was also very well-received. It had young Elijah Wood as Huck, Courtney B. Vance as, we'll just call him Jim.
Question. Was he also young?
He was a younger Courtney B. Vance. By the way, it's a fun movie to listen to at full volume on an airplane.
That's also when anybody comes on an airplane and is like, let's do reading time, and their first book is Huck Finn, be like, I don't think we should do reading time out loud on this airplane, sir.
Actually, this is the Disney-fied version. I have to think that they might have softened some of the pejoratives.
Yes, but I heard they recorded it both ways. Maybe one day on Disney+.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and nudity.
The cast, Channing Tatum as Duke.
Well, let's take a step. We're talking about Stephen Sommers.
Oh, you have more Sommers?
Well, if we were going to talk Stephen Sommers, he also came up with a story for it with Michael B. Gordon, Stuart Beatty. Do you want to talk about those people?
Well, Stuart Beatty, I know he's the screenwriter of Collateral, a movie I liked a lot. Michael Mann, Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx.
I did 30 Days a Night, which was a fun take on a vampire movie.
No fake presidents there.
Australia, was there any fake presidents?
He wrote Australia?
The true history about the founding of Australia? Any fake presidents?
Wait, was that the one with Hugh Jackman?
Yes.
And Nicole Kidman?
Yeah. Beatty he's an Aussie.
Oh, that explains nothing, actually.
No, not at all. But he wound up writing the script alongside David Elliott and Paul Lovett, whose only credits were Four Brothers, which that was a movie I liked. That was with Mark Wahlberg.
I imagine there were a lot more screenwriters on this that just didn't get credited because it did have a long history of development.
Yes.
Which gave him plenty of time to attach this cast, which is going to get very confusing because this is a movie where every character has an actor's name, a character's name, and a G.I. Joe call sign that frequently has no relation at all to either of the two names.
No, not at all. It's not. In some cases, some of them have 3 names.
Oh, yeah, like the Sienna Miller
Baroness.
character.
Yeah, she has like 3 names.
Because she's got her real name, who I guess maybe I'll just call her Sienna.
Yeah.
She's got the Baroness, obviously, but she's also got 2 different names. The name when she was dating Channing Tatum's character, and then the name she started going by after she went off the grid, but before she became the Baroness when she was lining up, not with Cobra, but with Mars.
Yeah, but Cobra Commander has 3 names too. He's Cobra Commander, he's the Doctor, and then he's also Rex.
Yeah. Rex. This movie's actually, it's basically a soap opera because you have all these characters who are not just literally fighting with each other for the fate of the world, but they're also past lovers, best friends,
they have
brothers and sisters.
Oh man,
cousins.
I mean, at the time, everybody looks at each other. Everybody, even though we don't see every flashback, it's like everybody is having flashbacks in their head about previous relationships throughout the entire movie.
There's 3 different flashback storylines. There's the storyline that develops Sienna Miller's and Channing Tatum's history as lovers. Intermixed with that, you get the storyline of Channing Tatum and Rex, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, as best friends, and also the brother of Sienna Miller. You also have the flashback storyline between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes.
Of course, as they were children street fighters trained by ancient warriors.
Oh, the best sequences of this movie by far.
Yeah, because there's no dialogue.
Very little dialogue. If they use CG, it was done very well in order to hide the fact that obviously these 10-year-olds aren't actually fighting to the death.
Yeah.
And then the movie opens in 1621 to give us a fair amount of backstory.
Oh, yes, we do.
Destro's history. So not a full flashback storyline, but a framing device that adds nothing other than explaining why.
Adds nothing at all.
Other than why at the end of the movie, the Christopher Eccleston character winds up having a silver face.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Ish.
And to show that he comes from a long line of arms dealers who play both sides. Oh, and then in every flashback is Marlon Wayans for some reason, just to show that he has a long history of friendship.
Marlon, like most things, Marlon Wayans is the best thing in the pro. I could talk about Marlon Wayans for a while. I think he's such a great actor. He's funny. He could be dramatic. He's he's a star, but it's crazy to me that he's not a huge star because I think he's that talented.
Wasn't the story that he was actually originally cast to be, he was like Tim Burton's choice of Robin back in the 90s when they were considering doing a Tim Burton Batman and Robin movie?
Yeah, I believe at some point he was supposed to play, I think, Richard Pryor in a biopic. Going back to Marlon Wayans in Requiem for a Dream, to even like the stupid comedies he did with his brother, he's still good. He's still good. He's just funny.
Requiem, by the way, is the movie that, according to Stephen Sommers, is the movie that Sommers saw that let him know he should be casting Marlon Wayans as Ripcord in
No
G.I.
way.
Joe.
For real? Are you for real?
That's what Sommers says.
Oh my God.
So yeah, Marlon Wayans as Ripcord, Dennis Quaid as General Hawk, Rachel Nichols as
Scarlet.
Christopher Eccleston as Destro, Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing Cobra Commander, Rex, the Doctor, you name it. Apparently he was cast before Channing and encouraged Channing to come on so they could torpedo their careers together. You have Ray Park as Snake Eyes, Lee Byung-hun, a Korean actor, Arnold Vosloo, the Mummy himself, returning as Zartan. You get Brendan Fraser as Sergeant Stone, a character created just for the movie, who's in one scene.
Uncredited. He just wanted to play. He just wanted to show up and hang out with his good old buddy Stephen Sommers.
Yeah.
He was like calling up on. He's like, hey, bud, what's going on? You doing anything today? He's like, I forgot to tell you, I'm making the G.I. Joe movie. He's like, great. Is the role of G.I. Joe available? He's like, no, we got this guy named Channing Tatum. Like, well, fine. I normally don't like to play bad guys. I'll do it for you. Cobra Commander. Brendan Fraser, Cobra Commander. What do you say, Steve? Like, and then he's like, actually, I have this role that I do have for you. His name is Sergeant. What's his name?
He winds up with Sergeant Stone.
Sergeant Stone. He was just looking around his backyard at something. He's like, Sergeant Tree, Sergeant Boulder, Sergeant Stone. Brendan Fraser, buddy old pal, come on to set. We got a role for you, Sergeant Stone.
And then there's also Jonathan Pryce as
Sir Jonathan Pryce. Sir Jonathan Pryce.
See, I'm just going by the credits as they appeared in the movie. And in the movie, he's just Jonathan Pryce.
He will always be a sir in my book. in the Queen's book. In the Queen's book.
He's a knight. Not our first British actor to play a fake American president.
This 2-time Tony Award-winning actor is brought in to play the president. And yet again, they opt not to give the president a name. He's just the president.
Yeah, just the president. We'll get, I guess, into that. That's kind of what our
But man, I
podcast
guess
is about.
if we have to talk about the president.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
But since we're talking about politics and presidents, one thing I do have to mention, because I didn't even realize this, I made a weird thing in my own head. When I was emailing you, Ben, suggestions, and I included G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, what was the other movie I sent along as to choose from?
I forget.
White House Down.
White House Down.
And then I didn't realize until after I sent you that text, wait a second, those are both Channing Tatum movies.
The Chan Man.
And I'm like, are we sitting on like a secret patron saint of our podcast? Because when we first started, we thought Gerard Butler would be like the unofficial mascot of the Fake Presidents podcast because he had the 3 Has Fallens movies, Geostorm, which we covered, Hunter Killer, his submarine movie, which we have not covered, but it's, according to the internet, a fake president movie.
Okay.
That's 5 right there. Is Channing Tatum like a secret central figure of our podcast that we have yet to even uncover?
We'll have to do some numbers. We'll do some sabermetrics to figure out who.
Well, White House Down, which we haven't done yet.
Okay.
G.I. Joe. He's in the sequel, G.I. Joe Retaliation. So the fake president. That's 3 right there. He's in the Lego movie, which has a president business.
Which is not the president of the United States.
It's pretty close. And, well, speaking of politics and pop culture, one thing we haven't talked about on this podcast is one of the biggest crossovers of international politics and pop culture in the history of the real world, and that would be the 2014 Sony hack by the North Korean government.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which revealed what, Ben? That Sony was desperate to inject 21 Jump Street into as many of their failing franchises as possible.
Oh, yeah. That was when they wanted to do a 21 Jump Street meets Men in Black, right?
Yeah, that was the big one. I think Ghostbusters was also talked about too. And so that got me thinking, Ben, what are some Sony movies we've already covered that Sony should be injecting Jenko and Schmidt, the 21 Jump Street characters, into?
This seems like a very, very special episode.
So that we can get Channing Tatum some more face time with some more fake presidents so he can finally overtake Gerard Butler.
Why do we want him to finally overtake Gerard Butler? What do you have against Gerard Butler?
Because Channing Tatum is from my hometown of Tampa. We went to rival high schools.
Oh, you guys were on different male stripping teams? Did you guys compete? It was a crazy rivalry between Chan School and your school in the annual sectionals for teenage male stripping team.
I just want to go through our Sony movies right now, just so we can envision what they'd be like with some.
Okay, let's do this quick. I have a feeling that both of us knew coming into this that there wouldn't be a lot to talk about with this president in this movie. So now we're just like beefing up the episode in the top. That way we could just like burn through this president.
Yeah,
is that correct? Is that a correct
that's
assessment?
Correct. More or less.
I'm ready for the game. I'm down.
The first Sony movie that we covered was Air Force One.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I rewatched the end of 22 Jump Street when they did all the fake teasers for all the future movies. There has to be one where they became Secret Service agents, right?
That makes total...
No, there was not.
Really? That seems like a very clear movie for them.
They go to medical school, art school, they go to space. They go to every school you can imagine, but they don't go to Secret Service school. And so Air Force One. And not only that, but you keep Harrison Ford because how do you do it? You have them join the Secret Service to protect a retired president who winds up on another plane that gets hijacked. And boom, there you go.
Get off my plane.
Vantage Point was the next one we did.
Oh, we did do that movie.
We did Vantage Point. That's Sony. And that's really easy because they already have 6 Vantage Points?
Yeah,
you just
two
keep
more.
The movie as is, just add in. There's one more from the point of view of...
What's more Vantage Point?
Yeah, Jenko and Schmidt.
Look. It's called Vantage Point, but it's really Vantage Points. It's really, it's mistitled to an extent. So I don't see a big deal. Boom, boom. 2 more Vantage Points.
And then the last one, I think, is the easiest one to insert them in because Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, you are the next Triple X's and Triple X State of the Union Part 2.
Look, you go triple X. The title is just 9 X's in a row.
Both those movies are about the recruitment and training of, let's just say, unorthodox people for undercover operations.
Look, you bring Vin back, and you know what? Maybe it isn't 9X. Maybe it's 12X. Maybe you have 12 X's in a row, and you bring back Vin, you keep Cube. Wait a second. You can't have Cube. Wait, you have both Cubes. Cube plays 2 characters. It's his.
Exactly.
Because Ice Cube is in, for the people who don't know about the Jump Street universe. Ice Cube plays their chief, who's in charge of their division.
Yeah. Down on Jump Street. Twin brothers. One becomes a cop, one becomes a criminal. Makes total sense. It wasn't too much sense.
Oh, too much sense. That's their way. That's the way in. Okay, so they're inserted into the Triple X universe. It's now called 12X, or if you really want to be specific, it's called XXXXXXXXXXXX, which is the preferred title according to Sony. It trends better on this new platform called X. So if you want to follow 12X on X, just type in @ XXXXXXXXXXXX, and you could find out everything you need to know about the future movie 12X. Yes. I like that game. That was great.
This is a presidential favor.
So G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra.
I think we can just very easily sum up what we need to sum up just to get to each of the president scenes.
Yes, we do. There's no way we're going through the major plot points of this movie, because the president is actually in grand total about 4 minutes of this movie?
Yeah, like 3 scenes. And so the first scene doesn't even come until 41 minutes in.
Yep.
And so what you need to know at that point is basically the movie opens with a NATO operation. NATO has purchased these highly experimental warheads from the Mars Corporation, not the company that makes Mars bars.
Not the Chocolate Corporation.
No, they make military weapons. And they're not typical warheads. They're actually kind of small. They fit into a suitcase, but they call them warheads anyway. And they basically have these nanotechnology mites that eat metal. And the idea is that you can use them in a war zone to destroy the infrastructure and the weapons of your enemy without killing the people, I guess. And so...
Except if those people are in the building that's being eaten.
Right.
Because then they would all fall to their deaths.
That's true. And so NATO has bought these weapons. They financed the production of them, and now they're transporting them to a safe location. And Duke's squad, they're in charge of transporting them when the transport is hijacked by, you think Cobra, but we don't have Cobra yet. We don't really know who's behind it yet. Something's going on there. They get attacked. They wind up saving the weaponry. Well, actually, not they. G.I. Joe comes to the rescue. The Joes come in and help fend off this attack.
The Joes being international squad of super soldiers. Are they super soldiers? They're super at being soldiers, but they're not souped up soldiers.
Yeah, what we'll find out also in this segment is that in addition to having NATO, this North Atlantic Treaty Organization amongst Western nations.
Wait, why were you using air quotes every time you talk about NATO?
I'm just saying.
You're just saying no.
I'm just saying it because it was formed to combat a threat that's no longer around, Ben. Russia's our friends.
We're all buds.
Anyway, it's a world that makes clear
we record this podcast 2 different ways because we want to be updated with the news. So just in case we're buddies again with Russia, we have this version, and in case we're not, we have the other version.
Yeah. So even though NATO exists as this Western alliance, there's another Western alliance that controls the G.I. Joes. I mean, it's not even Western because their headquarters in Egypt.
Yep.
They just mentioned that there's at least 10 other countries, the America being one, because General Hawk is an American kind of in charge of things, that is also basically doing what NATO does, but just with cooler weaponry. Mm-hmm. So a built-in redundancy against, I'd say it was formed to fight Cobra, except Cobra doesn't exist yet.
No, we do not know about Cobra
So why this elite strike force is there, not totally clear, especially since no one in the American military has even heard of them. Channing Tatum is caught completely off guard by their existence. All you need to know from all of that is that these weapons have gone missing, and we first go into the Oval Office. It's for 20 seconds, just long enough for the aides to inform the president that these warheads have been gone missing.
Yeah, but he asks a good question. He wants to know, are there any threats, demands?
And they say no, which means that they're probably unfocused and disorganized.
The president says, no. He's a smart dude, this president. He says, that's because they intend to use them.
Yeah, because the one thing we left out of our recap is, although they save the weapons once, Cobra then attacks the Joes at their headquarters, or at least training facility, and is able to reacquire them. And that's when they officially go missing. So technically, the movie could have saved you a good 30 minutes runtime if they just hadn't taken
They just let them get the fucking weapons in the first scene. Like, what's the big fucking deal? Jesus. We could have just saved Sony like $35 million.
They had to have a minor victory just big enough so that Channing can make the case that him Ripcord that they get to join the Joes.
Yeah, Joe us up. So we see the president. We don't see him again for like another 20 minutes in the movie, but in between, we do see one of our bad guys, Zartan, who's the master of disguise.
Yeah.
Who we don't know he's just like his previous disguises are just like kind of like okay disguises. It's not like
an eye patch.
Yeah, I mean,
literally an eye patch.
In the world of movies at this point, we've had Mission Impossible, where we've had like these crazy masks that they can put on. That he doesn't have that technology. He has like the same. He has like he knows where the Halloween store is.
Yeah,
like that. That's the level of his mastery of disguise is the Halloween store.
Well, it's played by Arnold Vosloo, who played the Darkman character in 2 of the Darkman sequels. So he's used to putting on other people's faces.
Yeah. Or also losing faces, because he also played the mummy in the Mummy movies.
Which he has a face, loses the face.
He has a face, loses a face, gets a face. You know, it's the tale as old as time.
True as it can be.
So Zartan, the master of disguise, we see he's put into a machine by the Doctor / Cobra Commander / Rex.
Yeah, it looks like they're injecting nanomites directly into his face, and it's very painful. And this is where it gets very confusing, because I know we just said a few minutes ago that these nanomites are like very dangerous and even deadly outside the human body. But when injected inside the body, they actually do some pretty cool stuff. They can like control your mind and change your face.
And they're changing him into something. He's been studying somebody for 18 months. We don't know who it is, but then we don't see who he's changed into.
Well, we do get at this point, a couple scenes where Christopher Eccleston's character, who will later go by Destro, but right now he's just McFadden, the long line of arms. McCullen. Yeah. I want to say McFadden.
JJ McFadden.
Yeah. He's a long line of Scottish arms dealers who play both sides. And he establishes what's going on. Basically, the plot is, yes, the Mars Corporation got NATO to fund the development of these nanomite warheads so that they can then steal them back from NATO mid-transport so that they can then use them against 3 large world capitals.
Why wouldn't he just have, like, overcharged them initially for making the 4 and make 8? Like NATO knows the cost of making nanotechnology warheads. They don't fucking know the cost. If McCullen was like, look, we're behind. There's a supply chain issue. It's actually going to cost a little more. But then it didn't really cost a little more. He's just making twice as many nanobot warheads, and he's going to keep 4 of them. There's a lot going on. He didn't really think this plan through. But anyway, so he just wants to unleash these on the world.
He wants to unleash them on the world.
Because
he believes that if the world faces a big enough threat, they will unify under one person, and implying that person will be him, right?
Naturally, who doesn't want to be led by a Scottish arms dealer?
Yeah, he says that they will unify behind the most powerful person in the world, I believe is the exact phrasing.
Yeah.
But he makes it sound like at that point it would be him. He would have all the power. Anyway, we get a big action sequence in Paris where the nanomites do get used to take out the Eiffel Tower in a sequence straight out of Team America World Police.
Yes.
America! Fuck yeah!
That leads to our next White House scene.
Yes, because the Eiffel Tower has been destroyed. The G.I. Joes, they saved Paris. They managed to stop the nanobots. They hit the kill switch, so they prevent the rest of Paris from being eaten by nanobots. But they're arrested.
Yes, Paris, a famously metal city.
Yes. There's like one metal. That's why they wanted to test it out there, maybe? Because there was like one metal building. But they're arrested. So the POTUS, he's hanging out at his desk as he finds out what's going on. He's told that they're trying to find the 3 other nano warheads and the president. He wants to know the status of the Joes. He's like, call the French ambassador to get him out. In the scene with the president, did you notice anything in the Oval Office?
Yeah, I noticed the same trees from The Day After Tomorrow.
Okay. You know what I noticed?
What?
Behind him, there are framed photos. And for some reason, this president keeps a framed photo of the White House in the White House. There's no humans in the photo. It is just a picture of the White House.
Okay, so we can try to suss out what that might mean later. That's an interesting observation. No, I just noticed that the plants were nearly identical to the plants that were in The Day After Tomorrow White House. This indoor houseplant version of like palms, palm trees, palm plants. Yeah, which to me always indicates a president who might be from, say, Florida.
How? Because I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
There's one more Oval Office scene that comes towards the end after Duke has been captured.
He's brought to the Arctic.
Brought to the Arctic where...
To the polar ice caps.
It was finally revealed that his best friend is Rex the Doctor, and that Rex is using these nanomites to control people's brains, and that Destro's not even really calling the shots. It's actually part of this big plan for the Doctor to do his own agenda. They wind up launching the three
remaining
warheads, which we've already established are small enough to fit in a suitcase and can be transported quite easily without being detected across borders. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, they feel the need to use ICBMs.
Fly them through the air. Yeah.
To fly them through the air. They're headed towards D.C., towards Beijing, and towards, was it Moscow? Moscow.
Right off the bat, though, the one to Beijing, Snake Eyes takes out.
Yeah, with a shoulder-launched G.I. Joe rocket of some kind.
Yeah, a G.I. Joe rocket.
A jocket. But the other two have to be stopped by a pilot. And of course, as well-trained as these G.I. Joes are, the only pilot they have is actually the one person who has no formal flying experience officially. Marlon Wayans, he's been practicing apparently in his free time. But because he's in the Army, he secretly always wanted to transfer to the Air Force.
Yeah.
But he'll only do the transfer if Duke transfers with him.
Uh-huh.
Is that a thing? I don't want to be in the Army anymore.
There's this thing called bro code, Eric.
But my question is,
heard of it?
If you transfer from one branch of the armed services to the other, do you have to lose a year of eligibility?
You have to take a year off before you go, yeah.
No, it was so what happened initially? Because he seems to always like flying. He seems to have enough flying experience going back a long time that the Air Force would have been a natural fit for him. But for some reason, was he conscripted? Was he drafted? Was it just because his best friend's like, dude, I know you spent all that time flying, but we're fucking doing the Army and you're coming with me?
Eric, I'm sure they shot a flashback for all this. I just don't know why they didn't put it in the movie.
Yeah.
It was definitely part of Ripcord's flashbacks.
Yeah.
And it exists somewhere.
His whole character boils down to two things. He wants to fly a plane and he wants to kiss Rachel Nichols, Scarlett. And guess what? By the end of the movie, he does both.
He gets stuff done.
Yeah. So he winds up having to take to the skies, kind of like how later Captain America would have to do at the end of the first Captain America movie.
But anyway, so the warheads are flying towards Russia, flying to D.C. So we cut to the Oval Office where for some reason the president is just looking out the window when this happens. He's just looking out the window in his office when his aides come in to tell him what we just saw, that the nano warhead is coming for D.C. He's got to go to the bunker. Yes. And he wants to know what is their plan. He is like, what is their plan? Which,
by the way, what stood out to me is the fact that this scene is in direct contradiction to the first scene where they tell him there's been no demands. And then he says, well, that means they're going to use them. Here they're now being used. And he's like, wait a second, they're using them. But
what's
they didn't
their
tell
plan?
us what they wanted first.
What are the demands?
Dude, you predicted it.
Yes.
You called this.
Yeah.
So, characters. At this point, if you had told me the president had, say, been switched by somebody else, I might have been like, that's a sign. Except it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened
yet.
yet.
The next scene.
Yeah.
The next scene we see him go down to the bunker. A bunker made by Mars Industries.
Yep.
Because it's well branded.
Yeah. But the also weird thing is when we come back, they do like a lower third letting us know where they are and what time it is. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
They're like, it's 5:32 in the morning. You're like, if it's 5:32 in the morning, why was the president just standing in his office at 5:27 a.m. just looking out the window? There's like more. I feel like maybe he was having a flashback. to like some traumatic moment in his life. He's just, that was the note Stephen Sommers gave everybody. Is like, if nobody's talking to you, you are actively having a flashback.
We'll figure out what the flashbacks are later. Don't worry. We'll do that in the reshoots. Clearly, he's a president who needs a constant reminder of where he is, as evidenced by the portraiture in his office. But, he goes down to the bunker where all of a sudden a Secret Service agent with I'll say Cobra tattoo. It's not a tattoo. It just so happens that when you're injected with nanomites, it leaves a Cobra scar. And so this Cobra Secret Service agent kills a couple other Secret Service agents, and then out of the bunker steps a person whose face we don't see. But we know that this person was hidden in the bunker, and the president, as soon as he sees the person's face, says, "Oh, that's what this was all about."
Yeah.
We don't know yet as viewers.
We hear one thing. We say, "Hello, Mr. President. Mr. McCullen sends his regards."
And so, and then we get to the rest of the fighting to resolve the actual action of the movie.
Yeah, world is saved. Bad guys are caught. Yada yada.
And then we make one more trip to the White House.
Yeah, where the president he's going through his office to go to the Oval Office. He's receiving applause from everyone for some reason, because even though it seems like it's been a couple of days since everything went down, and they're like, "Welcome back." They're welcoming him back. I don't know whether there was a scene must have been cut or something.
I feel like the presidential plot line all takes place in one day. And so
why would anybody say
leaving
welcome
the
back
bunker?
Welcome back from the bunker?
Welcome back and clap, clap, clap for having succeeded in defeating this
You don't
threat.
think nobody asked what happened to the other Secret Service agents?
Yeah, that's what I want to know, because they were shot.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway.
Well, they tell him, like, welcome back, great speech, and he's the president's alone in the White House. He puts his feet up on the desk, and he whistles, for he's a jolly good fellow.
Which, at this point, we've only heard 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 10 other times in this movie, each time whistled by Zartan, the master of disguise.
Yeah. And then we go into the credits where the Black Eyed Peas, boom, boom, pow, boom, boom, pow. And you just want to dance. You just want to dance after sitting down for an hour and 50 minutes watching this shit. You just want to dance.
Boom, 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 gotta get boom, boom.
It's such a weird plan to replace the president, because weren't they ultimately trying to kill? I mean, like, let's say the Joes didn't stop the nanobots from, like, eating DC. Wouldn't Zartan would have died? Wouldn't he have died if he was like in a place that was being eaten by nanobots and stuff was like collapsing? Wouldn't you die?
Remember, Mars Industries made both the nanomites and the bunker. So I think they somehow had it designed so they knew that the president would survive. The world would be in chaos, and this powerful person who he had previously said the entire world would turn to is the president's. So there would be some sort of newfound, unified world governance under which Zartan, disguised as the U.S. president, would now be the figure pulling the entire strings globally.
So the nanobots wouldn't eat, they were programmed not to eat the bunker. They would eat the White House, but not the bunker.
Or who says that it would land at the White House? Maybe it just land at the Capitol?
But the nanobots just keep going. That was the whole thing until somebody does the kill switch. They just keep consuming.
Until they get full. I mean, they have little tiny bellies.
Motherfucker, I'm not asking if you're interested. I'm the president of the United fucking States, man.
Okay, well that's G.I. Joe, and that's our president for it. So what is it? Does this movie say anything? I mean, does it say anything about 2009? What do we think?
I mean, I think it actually says a lot based on when it actually takes place, because this whole movie is setting up a world in which a U.S. president is actually a foreign agent for an enemy power that's looking to use the Oval Office to pull the U.S. out of its global treaties and joint operations that were formed to prevent that foreign power from wreaking havoc across the globe.
Question: Which version of the podcast are we recording right now? The pro-Russia one, or the one where Russia has lost? I just want to be prepared, because I don't want to go back to the gulag if I don't have to. The Brittany, I cannot go to the Brittany Grenier suite. This is not for me.
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the president of the United States.
As Trumpian as it as we can see that. It's also quite Bushian because of the trusting of corporate arms dealers and kind of like mercenaries. There's like a Blackwater group vibe to McCullum and Mars.
Well, the movie's definitely pro-war, pro-violence. Mm-hmm. This movie, by the way, I gotta say, this movie is unbelievably violent. Like,
but it's unbelievably violent, but also everything looks incredibly fake.
Yeah, it's PG-13, so it's bloodless. But that said, you have people getting their heads blown off by grenades. You have people dismembered by forklifts. Mm-hmm. So many stabbings and getting shots in the face, shot in the eyes. Like, it's a Quentin Tarantino level of Inglourious Bastards adjacent war violence. Just
sans
blood. The blood.
Yeah.
So yeah, what does it say about 2009? It definitely reflects a post 9/11 America in which wars and fighting is still the answer because you must fight back against those who strike against you, and you just have the right people do it. What's interesting, though, where they missed the mark is, as we know in the real world by 2008, 2009, letting drones do all the work.
Well, that's the idea of the nanotechnology, letting nano do the work.
I guess they're kind of drones, but otherwise, there's really no drones in here. Every aerial vehicle is piloted by a human.
Yeah. Still, there's American jobs.
So yeah, we get some glimpses of the future, some predictions of how, the U.S. could be compromised from within.
What about, we got secret military wings doing all the dirty work?
We do. We also, but in a weird way, it's actually pro-international cooperation in a way that you don't really see now in movies. But back then...
Except in the Fast and Furious.
Is it international? I feel like...
Yeah, they have Gal Gadot. They have the Korean guy.
She's dead. He's dead. I mean, he came back.
Came back.
I mean, she came back.
She came back. Yeah, they all come back. There's in not this 10, I think in 9 or 8, they had the guys from South America on their squad.
They're in and out.
Yeah.
The main squads.
Wait, and Mission Impossible, it's an international squad also.
It's made very clear that the Mission Impossible's force.
Mission
the
Impossible.
Impossible Mission's force.
Okay, Sean Connery.
the Impossible Mission. The IMF.
This mission is impossible.
The IMF is a U.S. governmental intelligence operation that gets folded into the CIA by the most recent movies.
Whatchamacallit's part of it. The Brit guy. A German lady.
No, Elsa?
Elsa helps out.
No, she was a British spy for one thing. She was an MI6 agent who winds up having to infiltrate what do they call it? Like the entity. Not the entity. The entities from the new movies.
Yeah.
They have a name for like
I know what you mean.
Their version of Chaos, which is the Chaos is from Get Smart. What's the one from
James Bond?
James Bond? Spectre. Yeah, they have their own version of Spectre, which gets set up in like Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation. The Rogue Nation, it's the Syndicate.
The Syndicate. Oh, that's not even a good name.
I do definitely feel like this was reflecting of a time when even a Republican White House was really trying to play up all their conversations with all our partners overseas to create a coalition of the willing to fight the axis of evil. And what's interesting in this case, I'm still curious about the nature of G.I. Joe. Who are the member nations of G.I. Joe? Egypt has to be one, unless Egypt is just loaning them land underneath the pyramids.
Maybe they figured out like you get below a certain length, nobody really owns that. We don't know how far down they go.
That gets established in G.I. Joe Retaliation. Have you seen Retaliation?
I mean, I have, but I forget. Like I said, it's a movie where I forget everything.
No, there's a line where Walton Goggins, who plays the warden of this super secret prison, where he makes note that this is the deepest shaft in the world, and it goes so deep, it goes into international territory where there are no laws. And by the way, in Retaliation, that's exactly what happens. Is it opens with the president being still played by Jonathan Pryce, but he's the Vartan version of Pryce, and he opens the movie by basically declaring the Joes enemies of the people.
Wait, can he transfer back to his old self at all? Does he have to go back to the machine?
No, they do a thing where, because it's nanomite technology is making him look like the president, if he gets injured in any way for a brief second, the nanomites will reveal his real face before it heals himself and makes him the president again.
So every time, like if he's walking around barefoot and he stubs his toe, it goes back to like Vartan's toe, Xanton's toe.
Yes, that part of the body that gets injured.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or if he like cuts himself shaving.
No, I mean, retaliation. I mean, we all know a big part of retaliation is the lengths that Vartan has to go through in order to keep the ruse going before the First Lady, who he does fall in love with at a certain point, and realizes that the First Lady and Jonathan Pryce were actually not in a loving relationship, which complicates his ability to...
Wait a second. This sounds suspiciously like our first episode where we covered Dave.
I'm not... Well, am I wrong in that G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra essentially ends with the setup of Dave?
I once caught a fish this big.
So 2009, this president, what do we know? We know he's got some palm frond plants in his office. He's got a photo of the White House in the White House.
In the White House. Picture the White House in the White House.
We know 2 out of his 3 scenes are a direct contradiction of themselves in terms of like how he strategically thinks.
Yeah. He's an early riser.
Early riser. He's basically got all the hallmarks of early onset dementia. Which makes it all the more awkward because the reason why they don't kill him in the second movie is because Vartan needs to keep going to him for information to say, like, okay, now tell me how this works or that works. But
when is your daughter's birthday? I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah, it's a pre-Wikipedia world.
Do we know his party? What do we think the president is? I think this older white man is a Republican.
You're basing that off of what?
He's very trusting of corporate arms dealers. He's down with secret military wings. Oh, wait a second. He might be a Democrat because here's a reason why he might be a Democrat.
Okay.
He has a good relationship with the French that he's able to negotiate the G.I. Joes out really quickly.
That is true. Yeah. In fact, the French, they kind of have every right to be upset and maybe want to hold on to these guys for a little longer. But it's like, okay, if you promise they don't come back.
Within mere minutes of being on the phone, he's able to get them released. So maybe he's a Democrat because of that.
But for all we know, this is a France that's already gone pretty right wing in its politics. Maybe
Le Pen. It's been Le Penified.
Cobra Commander and Destro, they get captured in the last minute of the movie.
Yep.
And by all accounts, we don't think they're given a trial, do we?
Oh no! I mean, they're in a secret underground magnetic prison.
So that implies there's definitely some Guantanamo-esque policing of our enemies going on. Okay, so we got party. You're thinking the French leans shows maybe a democratic president with some good relationships with our Western allies.
Correct.
Even if a lot of the more militaristic aspects of this guy's personality and his allowances for secret underground off-books military operations might point to a Republican who's more cozy with the military-industrial complex.
It's hard.
The exact kind of politician that General Eisenhower himself warned us against.
We'll never forget what Eisenhower said.
Have you forgotten?
Yeah, it's hard because if I didn't know it to begin with, how could I forget something I never knew?
In his speech, when he was like leaving office, like flat out warns against the rise of the military-industrial complex.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Party, I'm going to say Democrat. You're saying Republican?
I'm going to stick with Republican. Do we think the people like him? Approval rating.
Here's where it's not fair because I've seen the next movie, so I know for a fact that according to Zartan, turns out everybody loves the look of you with the mind of me. That's what he says.
What did he change that much? I mean, it seems like
he's a lot more decisive, is what I'm gathering.
Okay.
In the next movie. And so, by the way, you do get the waffling in this movie. The fact that he so quickly goes from they're going to use those weapons to wait, they're using their weapons, just shows that he's unable to hang on to a single line of thought for too long.
I think anytime there's an attack and it fails, that's a good thing for the president in terms of approval rating. So I'm sure he's like easily over 50. If not approaching 60 right now, following this.
The way they're clapping for him just within the White House, it definitely implies that the world at large is viewing whatever happened as a success that he could take credit for. He's ending super popular. We're looking at G.H.W. Bush during the peak of his popularity post the first Gulf War, when he was like pulling, 70s? Close to 80?
The only people who don't like him right now are probably the wives of those Secret Service agents who've disappeared.
Does he get a second term? If he's a first termer? Probably.
Probably. I think he's definitely a first termer.
Heck, off this. If he's a second termer, he might get a third term. I mean, that's got to be the plan, right?
Yeah. Who knows what the plan is? Because I mean, I don't know. I think the plan basically just came from watching X-Men, because this is like a direct ripoff.
And reading the Watchmen comic books, where it's all about, I must manufacture this giant threat in order to bring world peace. Except, why does a arms dealer want world peace? Like, he says he wants everyone to answer to the same person that he'll control, but if no one has needs to buy weapons anymore, is he just going to shift businesses?
This is just what happens when people get bored with their lives, because on paper, the dude's making bank. He's banging the Baroness, but is not married to her because she has like another relationship going on to like maintain her cover.
The Baron, yeah.
Yeah, he's married. She's married to the Baron, so he has a great thing going on. He's banging this super hot younger woman who does basically whatever he says because he's put
nanomite
in her. That's not a good thing, guys, by the way.
No.
That's not this kind of podcast.
Yeah, she's basically turns out she's been roofied the entire time.
But yeah, basically she's been roofied the entire time. So in his mind, he has a great thing. I'm not saying he has a great thing. I'm saying in his mind, he has a great thing, or he should think that he has a great thing, because he has this woman, but he doesn't even have to worry about her signing a prenup or anything because they're not married. And he's probably a billionaire. He's just bored. He's just bored with shit, man.
I mean, which leads me to believe that there's got to be an ex-Destro out there somewhere, because he's definitely acting very, very divorced.
Yeah.
Like,
this is midlife. This is some midlife crisis shit for a supervillain.
He's created this company that's got this really good thing going, and mostly out of just some weird need for attention, he's just flushing it all down. Like, he's firing all the people who are in charge of the nuts and bolts operation of actually making weapons, which is what Mars industry does. And instead, he's focusing on this other world domination plan, which, if it actually succeeds, it'll destroy the very business that he started in the first place.
I would love to see him with I would love to see a Sopranos version of this, where he's seeing like a shrink to like figure all this stuff out, because
Dr. Mindbender.
Yeah, you could go to Dr. Mindbender. So yeah.
I always thought it was weird that Dr. Mindbender was not a psychiatrist.
Sometimes you got to go against the grain for whatever. Look, Duke's name is Duke, and he's not a Duke.
Channing Tatum's name is Conrad Hauser. Where do you get Duke from that? Is he a John Wayne fan?
I want to read what critics thought about the movie, so I went back to the old New York Times review, and I think Manohla Dargis brings up like John Wayne.
No, it's definitely, it's one of those things. I bet you if you ask Stephen Sommers, he's like, yeah, I was just making a Western. And like, you were?
He's like my dog is named Duke. I don't know what to tell you.
So,
my other dog, yeah. Rex.
Rex, Duke, Commander. Anyway, this has been the first movie in our Summer of Summers. We'll be doing all the Mummy movies next. And
wait, he wasn't invited back to do the sequel.
No, he didn't do Retaliate. That was John M. Chu.
He hasn't
the
done
director of Wicked. Did G.I. Joe Retaliation.
But Summers hasn't done another big movie since. Is he retired?
Right. This is his last major effort, like big budget studio effect. He did a lower budget genre film with
that actor who passed away,
Anton Yelchin.
Yeah,
yeah, and then nothing since at all.
I mean, and he's young. He's in his early 60s. Like he made this movie when he was in his late 40s.
Yeah, he got started. He was only in his 20s when he made his first low budget indie direct-to-video movies that got him on the radar of Disney.
Look, sometimes you have to just retire when you're on top.
Or
you finish a movie.
I mean, is he in director jail?
How can you be in director jail? How can you be in director jail if they're making sequels from your movie?
But that's just well, the second movie did make more than the first movie. I think it's one of those cases where this movie was not screened for critics.
Yeah,
which implies no matter how well it did, Paramount was not happy with the end result.
Well,
Paramount's
yeah.
like,
I mean, it proves, though, that, at least Paramount watches movies before they release them.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, that's been Fake Presidents. And that's been G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra.
The Rise of Cobra, even if Cobra doesn't get really named until the very end of the movie.
Yeah, that's when he rises.
Well, he rises and then gets captured, which is like, okay, so who? Because the only non-Cobra person still out there when the movie ends, even though we find out later some dead people did survive, like Storm Shadow. But as far as this movie's concerned, the only one out there is Zartan. And so did he have private talks with the doctor beforehand about, like, Cobra's coming, we're going to do a Cobra thing, rebranding's in the works? Did he know about that? Because if it was up to Rex to brand things Cobra, he hasn't got a chance to do that.
The thing about Cobra Commander, I think if you've watched the series for a long time, even in the cartoon form, he's an optimist. He always looks on the brighter side of things. He sees things that go against him. It's just a blip. And you know what's going to happen? He's going to rise again. That's the Cobra way.
Yeah. Theme song by Johnny Sadoff.
Yeah, artwork by Ann Hecker. You could find us, I guess we're on X. Yeah. We're on Instagram. We're on Threads. We're on, I don't know, what else are we? We're on all that stuff.
You can usually find us at fake_presidents. And you can email us at fakepresidents@gmail.com. In fact, we kind of want to do a mailbag. So send us your email, send us your questions. Definitely please rate, review, and subscribe. It's been a while since we've gotten one of those.
Especially if it's good. Until next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Knowing is half the battle.
My mind wandered quite a bit watching this movie.
Yes.
What does that mean, Ben? If knowing is half the battle, what's the other half? The battle? That's like saying knowing how to make a sandwich is half the sandwich. But then that means the other half of the sandwich is the whole sandwich?
It's a whole sandwich. Yeah. I guess the answer would be yes.
It's a paradox.